Hey, second period life science, this is Miss Butler. This week we're sticking with animal kingdom, specifically more invertebrates. There are 9 major phyla of invertebrates. This week we're studying 3: Echinoderms, Platyhelminthes, and nematodes. So just to review, most animals are invertebrates. Some invertebrates have a hard outer covering. Others have a skeleton on the inside of their bodies. They definitely don't have any backbones. Some examples of invertebrates are your sea stars and your roundworms. So let's start with echinoderms. The Latin name is Echinodermata. Their name translates to mean spiny skin, and they have structural support inside their body called an endoskeleton. They all have radial symmetry like a circle, and an example would be sea urchins, sea stars, sea cucumbers, called that because of their shape, and sand dollars. Yes, sand dollars are actually living invertebrates. A lot of adults didn't know that. Echinoderms have hard plates embedded in their skin for body support, kind of like a suit of armor on the inside. And they have thousands of these small, muscular, fluid-filled tube feet, and that's how they move. They live only in the ocean. They can survive out of the water for a short period, like when the tide is low. Flatworms, the second phylum we're studying this week. You pronounce the Latin name Platyhelminthes, but that means flatworms. These are the simplest worms on the planet. They have flat bodies, obviously, that's why they're called flatworms, with bilateral symmetry. They have a head or an anterior end and a tail end or a posterior. Most of them live on their own, which is called free living, but some flatworms live inside other animals as parasites, so they feed off of a host. This is a picture of a planarian, which is a free-living flatworm. This is not a parasite worm, and you can find planaria underneath rocks in fresh water, like a creek or a stream. If you look, planaria have eye spots. They're not eyeballs because they're not that advanced, but they're spots that act like eyes that can sense light. And this worm has one opening on his ventral side. There's a typo right there. Ventral side, belly side, and that's where he eats and also where he gets out the waste. Just one opening for eating and pooping. Tapeworms are a parasitic flatworm you probably have heard of. They live inside of host organisms, and they attach to their host's intestines with these suckers on their head. This is a microscopic picture, but you can see the little hooks and suckers that help tapeworms attach to the intestines. And so they feed off the nutrients available in the intestines of their hosts. It causes the host organism to not be able to gain weight and not be able to be healthy because these parasites are eating all of the nutrition. The last phylum for this week is phylum Nematoda, which means roundworms. These worms have thin bodies with pointed ends. You can kind of see how each end is tapered or pointed. They have bilateral symmetry, but they're not as thin, they're not as flat as flatworms. These worms are a little more advanced. They have a mouth for their food, and they have a separate opening, the anus, where the waste leaves. Most nematodes live inside other organisms. They're parasites, but some nematodes just live in things like the soil, ocean, or fresh water. They have to be near a water environment, a moist environment. Nematodes, some of them can cause roots of plants and farmers' crops to rot. So some farmers might have to put out a nematode pesticide. That way their crops don't die. They treat it with a pest control application. I know you've heard of dog heartworms. Heartworms are an example of a parasitic nematode. And if heartworms are not treated, they can actually clog the heart of the dog, and that way the blood can't be pumped. They're not really good. If your dog has heartworms, you want to go to the vet to get some medication.